let's start. Hello, everybody. We welcome you at our Thursday presentation, and the topic of our today's lecture will be quite interesting because it is related to the influence of emotions, the influence of music on human emotions. So it is well known that music has a great impact on the physiological and psychological well-being of people, and music evokes strong emotions in us. It changes our mood and consoles our mind when we feel not so well. Singing and listening have different effects. Singing has positive influence on the health and well-being of the singer. It arouses positive emotions and improves immune functions. Fast tempo music provides higher arousal of the mood and more obvious change of the mood compared to the slow tempo of music. And the effects of listening to music have also been investigated quite widely. Listening to music has a relaxing function. It reduces anxiety, decreases systolic blood pressure and heart rate, decreases pulse rate and respiratory rate in people who are quite healthy psychologically and physically. And also listening to music helps people to get rid of anxiety if the person is exposed to stress. Long-term music listening helps to facilitate studying and concentration abilities, and also music has a distraction effect, which is good for improving the psychological and physical states of the person. For example, it can relieve pain as well as help the person get rid of the stress. Music is also used as a therapy because it reduces systolic blood pressure, stimulates depression, people who are depressed, and helps them get rid of this depressed state. Also, music pacifies agitated behavior and reduces dementia even. So it has some obvious healing quality, and it was proved by research on many different cases. Also, today I will speak more about the influence of Indian music because we have some studies on this topic. Listening to a combination of Indian and classical, folk, and the instrumental music has a positive impact during various kinds of therapies. This was proved during a few independent researches. And it turned out that music helps to reduce stress during some unpleasant medical procedures, for example, colonoscopy. The music, Indian classical instrumental music helps people who go through the gastroscopy to reduce their blood pressure, diastolic blood pressure, systolic blood pressure, to reduce their heart rate and respiratory rate. Also, patients who suffer from metabolic syndrome, in their case, when they listen to Indian classical and instrumental music, it turned out that it helps also to reduce their blood pressure, fasting blood sugar, glycated hemoglobin, low density lipoprotein, and it helps to increase high density lipoprotein so that it improves general condition of these patients. And also instrumental music turned out to help for treating children who were undergoing venipuncture. So these are results of some Indian researches, but today we are more interested to see the influence of music on human emotions and how it can be captured with the GDV method. As you know, India is a land of spirituality, and in ancient India, music was taken as sacred and religious, and it was associated with different rituals and temple worships. And even now, such events are quite popular when Indian religious songs are played in public. These religious songs are called the kirtans, and the lyrics are written by famous Indian poets. So such programs are organized quite frequently in India, and the authors of one interesting research were guys from the Department of Yoga and Humanities in Vyasa, the yoga university in India, Bangalore. In the course of this experiment, some religious music was played in public, and this performance lasted for 2.5 hours. And the effect of the music was measured with the GDV camera. It was the older version of the GDV camera, not the BioWell, but the principle is similar. As you know, the GDV method is very sensitive to capture the influence of thoughts, emotions, and various kinds of mental exercises on human energy if you measure the person without filter. You can capture the psychological and physiological condition at this very moment. And the goal of this research was to find the effect of Indian religious music on the yoga students, on the singers and accompanists of the music, as well as on the usual audience. The goal was to find out the effect of listening to religious music on the area and intensity of the students, the performers of the music, and the audience. A mixed method was used. The response of students, singers, and accompanists to the music was measured with the GDV camera before listening to music for 2.5 hours and after. And the audience was interviewed and asked about the emotions they felt during this session. So students and the people from the audience were sampled randomly. All musicians and accompanists were in the study. And 55 people from the audience were randomly asked about their emotions. So the tool of the measurements was the GDV camera, and the duration of the experiment was 2.5 hours. As a result, it turned out that listening to the religious Indian music leads to a high increase in area and intensity of the yoga students, and it also led to increase in the area and intensity of the performance of the music, but it was not significant. So it was very, very significant that the music influences the listeners a lot, and the amount of their energy increases during listening. As for the performance, this effect was also there, but it was not so obvious. It might be explained by the fact that the performers are usually quite relaxed during playing the music, and yes. As for the audience, people from the audience also said that they felt various kinds of positive emotions, from just liking the music to feeling the connection with the divine. And the increase in area and intensity can be explained as increased psychological protection mechanism of the body from the influence of the toxins. So during this experiment, it turned out that listening to religious music entertains people, but also expands and gives them new energy charge. And this means that this kind of music can be used within a therapy to strengthen the human energy field. There was another interesting research which was carried out in Mongolian Scientific Technological University. And this was a research whose aim was to indicate the influence of national Mongolian music on the consciousness of people, of the listeners. And this influence was also captured with the GDV method. There is such a Mongolian national instrument, which is called morinkhur. It has only 2 strings, and this word is derived from the words horse and string, because the 2 strings of this instrument are made of the horse's hairs. And the music of this instrument is said to be very magical, very beautiful, and it sounds like the song of the wind. There is a discussion between the scholars who study music and the impacts of music from the 20th century. The discussion is on the topic how other kinds of music influence the national music, and if there is a connection between the classical and national music, and what is the connection between the national music and the mentality of of this nation, of these people. So the researchers choose 2 types of music for this experiment. They took some classical pieces, for example, a love song by Tchaikovsky, which was played with various string instruments, and they also chose one Mongolian song, which was played with this national instrument morinkhur. These 2 melodies are different, but in spite of their difference, they also have some similarity. The first part of the composition is quite slow. The end is also rather slow, but the middle part is played in a quicker tempo. So the goal of this experiment was to see the influence of the national music and the classical music on the psychophysical condition of the listeners, and to see if there are any similarities or if there is any difference between the influence of these 2 types of music. And the method was also the GDV method. During this experiment, 11 people were chosen. So 11 people took part in it. Among them, there were 5 men and 6 women. The men were in the age range between 35 and 54, and the women were from 36 to 68 years old. And all these participants were recommended not to eat too much, not to drink alcohol before 20 hours before the experiment, and not to drink much coffee or tea, just not to influence the psychophysical condition with any outer factors. During the experiment, the participants were relaxed. They sat down and found a convenient position. And the first measurements was carried out with the GDV method before listening to music, but after the participants had already relaxed, just maybe in half an hour from the moment they sat down and relaxed. And then they began to listen to some compositions, and every 30 minutes from after listening classical and national tunes, they began to do new measurements with the bi-well camera. So, of course, the measurements were carried out with filter. Some measurements were also carried out. Of course, most of them were carried out without filter, but some of them were also carried out with filter just for comparison. And as a result, it turned out that first of all, the stress level after listening to both kinds of music decreased. In the beginning, most of the participants had the stress level a bit higher than the normal level, although it was morning and they were not supposed to be stressed, but they were a bit stressed in average. But there is still some difference after listening to the 2 types of music, because after the classical compositions, they mostly got to the normal level of emotional pressure. But after listening to the national tunes, the majority of the participants got to the level of emotional pressure which is under normal level, which is calm. So they were in the condition which is close to the condition of meditation or deep inner peace. I'm sorry I don't have these diagrams now because it is an old research. I'll show you only one diagram, but there is a description of the research. So actually you can imagine how it looks, just the emotional pressure which is higher or lower than the normal level. So in case of all participants, it normalized, got closer to the normal level. Then, as for the health status, in the beginning, many of the participants had many imbalanced systems, which were highlighted because they were not balanced. But after listening to both kinds of music, most of the systems and organs got balanced. And there is an interesting diagram with the chakras of the participants. I will show this one to you. I will share my screen now. So here you can see the first, the two ones on the left are the results of measurements after listening to the classical music, and the one on the right is the national music. So yes, so the highlighted chakras are the ones before the experiment, the average one, and the other ones are the results after listening to music. So you can see that in case of most of the chakras moved towards the got more aligned in cases of listening to both types of music. Especially it is obvious with in case of this first chakra, but also in case of many others. So it was according to the statistics, after listening to the classical music, the first, the third, and the fourth chakras get more balanced. And after listening to the national music, kinds of music, the third and the fourth chakras moved, in case of some participants, got less aligned, but the first and the seventh chakras got more aligned. But in general, most of the chakras got closer to the center. So you can see that the music, with its melody, with its tunes and its beats and rhythms, improve and relax the human mind, and enables the human mind get closer to alpha rhythms of the brain. So the music can be used in order to protect people from stress, from emotional, from feeling too low emotionally. It can improve the human emotional condition with its effect and create balance. So as a result of the experiment, it is seen that the melody of classical music normalizes the heart chakra, which is one of the obvious kinds of influence. Of course, there are also other kinds of influence. Also, the national music influences positively the crown chakra and has a positive impact on human mind and human consciousness. But I'm sorry that I didn't provide you with many diagrams from these researches, but I would like to show you our own measurements. This was a measurement of Tatiana Korovina, who listened to some music, and she also has results before and after. So it is also quite interesting. I'll show it to you. Just a second. So this is first scan. The upper picture shows you Tatiana's condition before taking the measurement, before listening to music. And the second one, the lower one, is the image after listening to music. As you see that there are no more holes on the second measurement, and the balance has improved. Let's see other diagrams. Here's the health state before and after. So you see that it is much better after listening to music. In the beginning, it was some pieces, some parts are even in the red, in the pink zone, and afterwards it looks almost like the titanium cylinder. But I guess Tatiana just her emotional pressure got to the normal level. That should be the reason. And here you can see the chakras in the beginning and afterwards. I asked Tatiana what kind of music she listened to. I expected that it would be some classical music, but she said that it was the special music which is used for doing some bodybuilding exercises. So it is quite a rhythmical one, quite a one with a fast tempo, not so relaxing from the point of view of the outside listener, but as you see it, it has improved her situation a lot. The chakras are much more aligned, and they're also bigger, which means that the energy flows have improved. Yeah, Tatiana is here and she wants to make a comment. She says that it was in the beginning, in the end of a very hard day. It was a long working day. That's why she felt so bad and so disbalanced in the end of this day and very exhausted. So that her chakras are really scattered across this field. And she didn't want to go home in such a stressed condition so that her kids saw her like this. So she decided to relax and to listen to some music before going home. So you see the influence. Yeah. And also one interesting thing about music, some experiments have been carried out with the influence on music, the influence of music on the crystals of water. And it turned out that the water, first of all, it's not a secret that the water is very easy to influence because it absorbs information easily. And the different kinds of music create different kinds of water crystals. They modify the original shape of the crystals. So here is the crystal of water after the influence of Bach's music. This one is Beethoven, very beautiful. And there is one more image which shows how the water crystal has modified after the influence of rock music, hard rock, right? Hard rock. Yes, hard rock music. So hard rock music has a special influence. It breaks the structures which already exist. So here you can see that this, it doesn't look like that snowflake anymore. The structure of water is broken. But this doesn't mean that it is bad, because some structures need to be ruined so that something new is created. And as you have seen on the example of Tatiana, it was not hard rock music, but it was also something close to it, some close to rock. And she also had to break those old structures in order not to feel so exhausted, in order to fundamentally change her, the way she felt, and to get more energy, to change her mood completely. So sometimes it's not a bad idea to listen to hard rock. So you see, anyway, it is obvious that the music has a great impact on human emotions and on our psychological condition, and even on our physical condition. So we all should listen to music and choose the right kind, which will make us feel better. And the GDV method proves that the music has this influence. So that was all I wanted to tell you during this presentation. Do you have any questions?
Yes, Maria, I'm missing something.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about music, but I don't hear music. Where is music?
Можу включити твою музику? Tatiana, we can switch on the one she listened to. Maybe.
Fine.
As for that Mongolian one, I don't have it now, but I think it's possible to find on YouTube. I can send you the name if you want. There is a very long name of the...
No, it was just for joking. It is,
no. But we can do that.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Well, Tatiana is looking for that music.
Yeah, Martina, I had just want to share when I did the was at the Irish Academy of Music. We had this yogi come in to do a lecture and demonstration, and he brought his sitar, and he did a lecture first on the instrument and the history and all that, and then he demonstrated the tuning system, and he pointed out that each string was tuned to each different chakra of the human organism, and it was a very powerful lecture. And then he lectured, and then he played some music on it, and it was really amazing. So yeah, it's a very interesting subject and research.
Sure, that's an exciting subject. And by the way, if you have any materials of yours or any experience, please share, because we are very curious ourselves.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah,
that's amazing. Send us some scans too, because we don't have so many except these ones of Tatiana. But we would like to see, because obviously this influence is very obvious, and we would like to work on it.
Awesome.
Okay, Tatiana has found that music. I don't know if you can. Can you hear it? Можно попробовать? Максимум. It will start now. So can you hear it?
And when can you see Tatiana dancing to this music?
She says she doesn't dance while listening to it, but she does some exercises, or just sits and listens. Just some exercises, physical exercises.
Okay.
I don't know. I think she's shy to demonstrate it now, but. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Maybe your own experience?
Yeah, I find growing up, I used to listen to I used to play in bands, and then I played in rock bands and metal bands. But in metal music, years ago, I used to use it for training while I did martial arts, and I found it a very energizing effect from the music. And then, of course, classical and world music does the opposite. And the metal music certainly has a very high energy content.
Слушал тяжелый рок, когда занимался спортом. Okay. Yeah, that's great. That's why that confirms it. Why it has such a special influence, which mustn't be negative. It can be also positive, because it can energize us too.
Yeah.
So thank you for coming today. In the end, I would like also to invite you to our Congress one more time. It will be a very exciting event, and I would like to tell you about a few reasons to attend our Congress. First of all, it will it will be, it will provide exciting information which will enable you to take over the debate and contribute to realization of plans of harmonious coexistence between humans and this great event will teach you new dimensions of creativity. It will bring you a chance to find your own mission or confirm the choice you have already made. And it will also teach you to master some non-standard abilities. And you know that in our world, in our time, it already becomes normal to have some non-standard abilities and to use them in our everyday life. So don't fall behind. Learn with us. Okay, really, we'll be happy to meet you in Prague or at least online. So see you soon. We hope to see you soon in Prague and also see you next Thursday at our next lecture. The next lecture will be dedicated to the translators. So have a nice day.
You too. Thank you, Martina, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah, everyone. Have a great day.